What's good, everybody, and welcome to an episode of the Yamatelekatias podcast with your host, Jai Shields, here on this Friday, June 20th, the year 2025, the official first day of summer. Hopefully, it's a good, safe, and enjoyable one for you guys out there watching and listening. We got a jam-packed good show here for you here today to kick off your inaugural summer weekend. Obviously, Game 6 in NBA Finals to recap and analyze from last night. A Game 7 for the first time in 9 years in the NBA Finals to talk about and preview coming up on Sunday night. Obviously, Major League Baseball, what a packed week it was within formerly America's national pastime. The Giants and the Red Sox meet up in San Francisco in the aftermath about 5-6 days after the Rafi Devers trade. We'll delve into that and peel back the onion on what that trade meant and what led up to that trade in terms of the Boston Red Sox, specifically within their organization behind closed doors. We'll give you some commentary on that. The Orioles blew 8-0 lead on Wednesday night, which made me want to pull my hair out. We'll get to that and their weekend series coming up in the Bronx against the New York Yankees, who recently, yesterday afternoon, snapped their longest losing streak of the season, although they did lose a series to the LA Angels of Anaheim in their own building. So we'll get to that. And the Mets, along with the Yankees, falling on some hard times. They've been swept back-to-back series last weekend against the Tampa Bay Rays at Citi Field, and then over the span of this work week on the road in Atlanta by the hapless Atlanta Braves, who didn't look too hapless, going up against New York Metropolitans. The New York Metropolitans got a series coming up this weekend against the Philadelphia Phillies, looking to get back on track before they head home at the beginning part of next upcoming the work week as far as that's concerned. So, but let's jump right into it. And I am NFL. How can we forget? Jaire Alexander is a Baltimore Raven. News came down about a few days ago, Wednesday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. I give you my 2 cents on that as the show progresses. So we'll have, obviously, the second show of this week is this one that you're watching right now. And then obviously next week, since we do have a Game 7, we will have, I believe, one show. We'll have one show next week, with it being on a Monday, and next week with obviously Game 7 being on a Sunday. And unless something crazy happens in the NFL or the Orioles, something will have to go down in the world of sports for me to have another show for you around this time next week. But this is the final week of the 2 shows a week in terms of it being a scheduled thing for us here until the football season starts in September. We'll go to 1 show a week starting next week, all through July, all through August, leading up until that first week of the football season. But let's jump right into it in terms of the NBA Finals. And my goodness gracious, now this has been an all-time great series, arguably the best series we've had since that aforementioned 2016 Finals. The last time we got a Game 7, that one obviously the 3-1 comeback between Golden State and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The games if you want to cherry pick with the first 6 games of this series, obviously you can find some bad basketball and some unwatchable games at that. But the series as a whole has been absolutely fantastic basketball, championship basketball to behold. First, and we can bitch and moan about the ratings. It's when it comes to the NBA and ESPN care about the ratings. Us as basketball fans shouldn't give one iota about what it does with the TV. As long as we're watching, that's all that matters. But last night, what an absolute marvelous performance from the Indiana Pacers, who did not go quietly into the night. And I thought, in all honesty, that they, going into that Game 6, were essentially walking into an impossible situation with, their last home game that they played, Game 4, failing to close the door there last Friday night in Game 4. Losing that game was just such a, oh my God, it was a disgusting, reprehensible loss. We obviously bitched and moaned about Scott Force and the officiating, but their offense going ISO ball. Halliburton was bad. it was just a reprehensible performance on the part of the Indiana Pacers, and they follow it up getting punched in the face in Game 5. On Monday, they get punched in the face in Game 5, and then they're down 3-2 with an opportunity to lose the NBA championship on their home floor. And we thought, oh God, here we go again. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they're just too dominant of a team. SGA is all world. I believe will have tallied 86 total wins between the 68 and the regular season, and obviously their playoff wins from April all the way through June. So I thought going into Game 6 that it was over. They didn't have a chance. They didn't have a prayer. Yes, I'm aware of their fantastic performances, obviously against the Knicks. I get the whole thing, and it was no shade, no disrespect to Indiana, but when they blew that game and had a prime opportunity to go back to Oklahoma City up 3-1, and that opportunity passed them by, and then they went to Oklahoma City in Game 5 on Monday, got punched in the face. I thought this was going to be a tall order, backs up against the wall. It's a whole different animal, facing elimination and facing adversity in the earlier rounds. In the finals, where you know that if you lose, it's it, and they get to hoist the Larry O'Brien on your home floor, like similar to how the Knicks played to a certain extent in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals on my birthday, in terms of just, utter just macho man, masculine, testosterone filled pride kicking in and says, hey, you may end up winning the championship. We'll see. We don't know what the next future games hold. A game, if back with the Knicks in a Game 7 or a Game 6, and in Indiana's case, a Game 7. But they said, you know what, damn it, you are not winning a championship. You are not hoisting up the championship trophy and celebrating and popping champagne and handing out hats and T-shirts on our home floor in front of our home fans and partying through the night in our city, in our house. That's not going to happen. And similarly, how the Knicks just were hell-bent on making sure that Indiana didn't have a prayer in that Game 5. Similar things happened, and a similar attitude was taken on the part of the Indiana Pacers, and just doing an absolute magnificent job. I think they missed their first 8 shots of the night or thereabouts in the first quarter. And then the second quarter really was what dominated and turned this game upside down from the standpoint of the Indiana Pacers, outscoring them 36-17 in the second quarter. And their defense really, really kicked it up a notch in that second quarter. Did a phenomenal job, just doing a great job defensively. Daring Oklahoma, they played a similar brand of defensive basketball as we saw Oklahoma City do to them and throughout their entire postseason run, daring the opposition to shoot threes, selling out to allowing three-point shots to be made. And then we're just going to clog the paint, stack the paint with nothing but bodies, nothing but yellow jerseys as far as the eye can see. You are not, if you want to take a mid-range, cool. If you want to, drop back and shoot the lights out from 3, we'll give you that, but you are not going to basically run a layup line and a clinic inside with easy layups, dunks, and short jumpers underneath the rim and the easy ricochets off the glass for 2. And not to mention the way SGA loves to play, executing on those high percentage shots inside. Then on the flip, foul shots every single 5 seconds when he drives to the basket. You are not going to do that, and that's the philosophy, and that was the attitude that Indiana had, especially highlighted in that magnificent second quarter, allowing OKC to only rack up 17 points throughout the second 12 minutes. Just a phenomenal job defensively, forcing turnovers, hands up on the defensive end, going for the steals. They just cranked up the intensity, and when they cranked up the intensity on the floor on the defensive side, the crowd in turn also cranked up the intensity. It was very similar to what we saw from the Indiana crowd in terms of that avalanche that we talked about back in their Game 3 victory, the first game played in Indiana of this series. But just did a phenomenal job. No, they didn't give up any easy buckets. They dared OKC to execute the low percentage shots, did a magnificent job. Not to mention TJ McConnell was absolutely sensational. This is a guy that's barely 6 feet tall, that's coming off the bench and is making a great case that if the Pacers end up winning Game 7, and he has a phenomenal Game 7 performance to boot on Sunday night. He's putting himself in the thick of the conversation to win NBA Finals MVP. In 24 minutes of game action, he shot 50% from the field, scored 12 points, was plus 10 in the plus minus, 6 assists, 4 steals. He was all over the place. He was the best player he dominated the game last night, making plays from one end of the floor, forcing turnovers, and then making plays on the opposite end of the floor, getting his teammates involved, making the nice mid-range jumps. He was absolutely sensational for Indiana last night. And he is going to be, if you are Oklahoma City, you almost have to go into this Game 7 saying, hey, we understand what Halliburton can do, and he is liable to go off and drop either 40 points or basically do what he did in Game 1, and that's essentially be half asleep until the final minute and change, and all of a sudden Kobe mode he turns on, and he has the ability to make a clutch jumper to either send the game into overtime or to win the game outright and give Indiana their first NBA championship. So you have to keep in mind for that if you're Mark Daigneault and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then also you have to account for McConnell coming off the bench. And we saw in that Game 4 loss last Friday, Carlisle got criticized, and rightfully so, for it was Game 4, for getting criticized because Halliburton, who clearly was laboring, we saw in Game 4, was clearly laboring. They could not sustain any offensive production nor momentum on their side of the floor when he was in the game last Friday night. They take Halliburton out the game, put in TJ McConnell, start getting some rhythm, some momentum, some baskets. They come within 10, 9, 8, 7, so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, he takes him out of the game and puts back in Halliburton, and it's essentially 5-on-4 the rest of the night. So, and I think knowing what he has in TJ McConnell coming off the bench, I know that has been a nice weapon that Rick Carlisle will not be scared nor hesitant to use in Game 7 and coming up on Sunday night, because he's been absolutely magnificent. And Halliburton, on the flip side, he's looked like himself. We thought he was over. There's no chances. He can barely move heading into a Game 6. Game 4 wasn't very good. Game 5 was complete and utter no-show on Monday night. And I had the thought going into last night's game saying, you know what, it's finished. Halliburton can't move, and when you're in an NBA Finals and your best player isn't playing well, and on top of the fact he's also compromised physically, there's no chance they can win this. There's no chance they can win this series down 3-2. This is not a chance in hell they had an opportunity, and yet they still redemption from the jaws of elimination. Just a marvelous and fantastic job from Indiana. I mean, you take a look, Pascal Siakam dominated the boards last night, 13 rebounds, 16 points on the night, shot 6 of 14 from the field. Everybody got involved, double digits from everybody except Miles Turner. Obi Toppin had 20 points coming off the bench, shot 4 of 7 from 3 in 23 minutes of game action. He was up there with TJ McConnell, who was the best 2 Indiana Pacers on the floor in last night's game. And we talked about it going into this series, and we've talked about it throughout this series and throughout their playoff run. You know, one of Indiana's strengths is playing team-oriented basketball. Not one guy, and that's what got them in trouble a lot of times, like we saw in Game 4, going ISO. ISO does not work, especially with this team. You got too many scores, got too many guys that can create open shots and can execute when they get to a rhythm. The more Indiana Pacers touch the basketball and take shots, the better. It can't just be the Tyrese Halliburton show. You get Pascal Siakam involved. You get Obi Toppin and McConnell involved coming off the bench. When you get everybody involved and you basically can overwhelm a team and a coaching staff where they're sitting there in the huddle in the timeout saying, damn, this guy's killing us. That guy's killing us. Obi Toppin's got 20. McConnell can't miss if he tried. Tyrese Halliburton can go off at a moment's notice, and Pascal Siakam essentially turns into Charles Barkley when he gets into a rhythm when we go small, and or when Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein just don't feel like rebounding and guarding defenders inside underneath the hoop. So if you're Daigneault, if you're the Thunder, you got your hands tied. you got your hands tied. So the more Indiana Pacers get involved offensively, the better the chances they have of winning a given game. This game 7 honestly is tough to call. We get it. The Thunder have been absolutely phenomenal at home this season. I grant you that, but that game 1 loss, like we said, I mean, it was literally the reason why the Thunder are still playing. And on the flip side, from the Pacers' side of things, that game 4 loss is the reason why the Pacers are still playing. And if the Thunder didn't choke away game 1, they'd have an NBA championship by now. And if the Pacers would have taken care of business in game 4, they would have won the NBA championship on their home floor last night. So both teams have their game 1 and game 4 losses to thank as to why they got to play one extra and final game in their 2024-2025 marathon to determine who will be the NBA champion. And if either team win, regardless of what happens, if the Pacers win on Sunday night, the Thunder can thank their job in game 1 as to why that could inevitably happen. And on the flip side, if the Thunder find a way to win on Sunday night, the Pacers can thank their disgusting no-show, Scott Foster, for their both egregious performances in Game 4 last Friday night at the Cambridge Fieldhouse. So, but I think this has the potential to be an all-time classic Game 7. And when you think about it from the NBA perspective, I mean, the Game 7s that I think about that stand out as the best Game 7s in recent memory, I think about Kawhi with the Raptors and the Sixers, and now that was a second-round playoff series that sent Toronto to the conference finals that year in the spring of 2019. That was the first Game 7 buzzer beater in the history of the NBA, as hard as it is to believe. Now, it didn't come in the conference finals, and obviously didn't come in the NBA finals, but that game was an utter classic. Who can forget that? And obviously, this has been it's hard to believe it's been a long 9 years since we've had an NBA Finals go the distance to the full 7 games, but the first time since obviously 2016, Cavs down 3-1. They went back-to-back games with games 5 and 6. Forced a Game 7 at Golden State at the Oracle Arena in Oakland and was just an absolute classic Game 7. Draymond Green was Ray Allen, couldn't miss from 3. Obviously, who can forget the LeBron James block, the Kyrie Irving go-ahead 3 that essentially was the icing on the cake. Cleveland with the Cavaliers wins their first ever NBA championship and ends the drought in Cleveland, going 50 plus years since their last professional sports title in the 3 major men's professional sports leagues. I mean, it was in the first 3-1 comeback also in the history of the NBA Finals. If we got an all-time classic series and an all-time classic finals then, and Game 7 then, we should be in for an absolute thriller coming up on Sunday night. If you don't watch, you don't watch. At this point, it's been a marvelous series, back and forth throughout. Unlike, now not to take anything away from that series, but at least how I look at it, I grade back and forth, whether it's Super Bowls or national championship games in the college basketball, college football. I grade those in terms of how great, how satisfying, how electric, how edge of your seat compelling. I grade them where if it's back and forth, the better the game. And the same thing with the series. If the series is back and forth, it's not really necessarily, a reverse sweep or one team collapses while the other team catches fire. I grade those a little bit, not to take anything away from. The 2016 NBA Finals is great. The 2016 World Series is great. The 1986 World Series is great. Not to take anything away from those series, but I give a series a little bit of a higher of a grade if it's more back and forth rather than one team hits the skids and the other one just takes off, catches fire, and does the impossible. That's just me. Now, unless this series ends via a game-winning three-point jumper from SGA, McConnell, or Tyrese Halliburton, I still think that the Cleveland and Golden State series, for my money, is the greatest NBA Finals I've ever seen, and the greatest seven-game finals I've ever seen. Not just because of, nostalgic purposes, but because of what it meant. And what it meant for Cleveland, the city, and its sports fan psyche, what it meant for the Cavalier franchise, what it meant for LeBron James as a Cav and as a basketball player. On their side of things, the 3-1 comeback, the historical piece also adds into the mix. And then on the other side of the coin, the Golden State Warriors, if they would have won that championship, and a lot of people's eyes would have went down as the greatest team in the history of the National Basketball Association, beating the 98 Bulls regular season wins record, the whole 9 yards, the 3-1 comeback in the conference finals against the aforementioned, ironically enough, Golden State Warriors, just to get to the NBA Finals. And had they completed the job, obviously it would have gone down in the record books and the history books as one of the greatest teams, if not the greatest team in the history of the NBA. And for without a shadow of doubt, without fear of contradiction, the greatest NBA team of the 21st century had they won that championship. So it has to, honestly, we got to have a Kawhi Leonard 2019 moment for me to entertain the thought of this series being better than that one when the dust is settled and everything is said and done. But having said all of that, it's still been a phenomenal series to watch. Tyrese Halliburton, again, the guy's toughness, his clutch, he's a basketball player. It was no show for 2 games, but he sure has made up for it with some grit, some mental and physical toughness. 5 of 12, 14 points. Didn't really blow you away in terms of, if you look at the box score, say, this Jive really 14 points, 23 minutes. That's you. No, you got to watch. And the guy, he was all over the slick pass that he made on the Pascal Siakam dunk. Not to mention he had 2 steals which were clutch. He obviously didn't. It's not going to blow you away looking at the box score, but he made a hell of a contribution and played just as big of a part in that victory. If nothing else, just being out there on the floor and healthy, looking like his old healthy self. I mean, if nothing else, you praise him, you give him his flowers for that. Because when his teammates see, when his coaches see, and when that sold-out raucous building sees that their A1 is raring to go and is not playing, essentially, with training wheels on and with the fearful injury reigns on him, either psychologically or physically, it's a tremendous morale and confidence booster for everybody involved with the Indiana Pacers last night and obviously heading into this Game 7. As this, in terms of Game 7 itself, I should say, on Sunday night, all hands on deck. Both sides, you gotta be prepared for anything. Pascal Siakam can take over and dominate this game just as easily as, say, an Isaiah Hartenstein or Lou. I mean, you have to be prepared for anything and everything. Games, we referenced Draymond. I mean, literally a role player, whether they be within the starting 5 or coming off literally they can catch fire and put together the best performance of their best performance of at any level of basketball. Game 7, the TJ McConnells of the world, the Obi Toppins of the world can literally come, the Alex Carusos of the world can literally, either if they're starting or coming off the bench, can put together for that 48 minutes the greatest game and their best game of their personal and professional lives. So you have to be prepared for anything. Obviously, game plan and make sure SGA and Terry Separate don't lose sight of that. But at the same time, you have to keep in the back of your head. Game 7, do or die, win the championship, go home. This is it. There is no tomorrow. Sometimes you kind of have to throw the prerequisite matchups and tendencies. At this point, you kind of have to ball that shit up and throw it in the trash and just say, you know what, 48 minutes, be prepared for anything. Be prepared for Tyrese or for SGA to go off. Prepare for Alex Caruso to drop 50. Prepare for TJ McConnell to drop 35 and 15. Anything is possible, and anything can happen in a Game 7. And I get it. Oklahoma City's been absolutely marvelous in their building, not just within these playoffs, but all season long. And also I guess there's a tendency and a trend that in these playoffs, the Indiana Pacers have not won a game on a Sunday yet through their entire playoff run. Make of that stat what you will. And then also on the flip side, you wouldn't figure Indiana would bust their ass and would play as hard and as fundamentally sound and as crisp as they did last night for them to force a Game 7, extend their season extra 48 to 72 some odd hours, only for them to fall flat on their face in a Game 7 no-show. This team's been through too much. They've pulled victory out of their ass way too many times over the course of this entire marvelous playoff run for them to get to OKC and have the game over by halftime, like we saw in Game 2. I don't anticipate that happening. If you're Oklahoma City, you can't count on that happening. And that's why I also said at the beginning of the series, it'd be interesting to see, push comes to shove, can Oklahoma City get down and get gritty and get nasty and just leave everything out there on the floor if they had got to engage with a white knuckler against Indiana. I said it going into the series. We all know how great they are. When things are going great, they can show a lot of tendencies of a front-running basketball team where if everything goes great and peachy from the jump, hey, they're the greatest team on the planet. But when they have to get involved and get nasty and get gritty, now granted, Game 4 last Friday night, give them tremendous credit, but let me see them do it again. And that one elimination game, won the game, winner take all championship clinching game. Game 7. Let me see how much. And honestly, we've seen it happen before with teams, play with fire a little bit. We got a Game 5, we have a Game 6, we have a Game 7 championship clinching game in our building. No big deal. Let's just, if we don't play well, let's just, wave the white flag and take our starters out. Start of the fourth, and now they were up 40, so I get it, but I'm saying that as an example. Let's, wave the white flag, game's over, on to tomorrow. That's a very, 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 very dangerous game to play. Because had Oklahoma City continued that same intensity and offensive efficiency they started the game with and not let essentially it go to hell in that second quarter and third quarter, they'd be NBA champions. And if they had an ability to finish, like we said, to close out Game 1, they'd be NBA champions by now. There'd be no Game 7. They'd be chilling in Oklahoma City for the parade, surrounded and swamped with victory cigars, enough booze to kill you in a weekend, and all the celebratory attitudes and festivities at the world's disposal had they been able to finish the deal at the start of the series in Game 1. 2-3 weeks ago. But they didn't, so they got to face a Game 7. And they failed to close out the series in Game 6 when they had a prime opportunity to. And now they got to play. It's in their building. They got home. They got the crowd on their side. But still, Game 7, anything goes. Anything goes. Anything goes, and anything can happen. And this is a young team. Young team, young head coach. It's almost as if like the Pacers, you get the feeling that they kind of, this is just, now my perception may not be the accurate one, but it's the one that I have in terms of evaluating and looking at and reflecting on these two teams here going into Sunday night's game. You get the feeling, at least I get the feeling, that Indiana kind of welcomes and embraces the uncertain chaos that comes with games like Sunday night, with last night's elimination game in a game. It's almost like they invite it, like they get a sick enjoyment out of their backs being pushed up against the wall with their season hanging on by a thread. It's almost as if they welcome that. I could be off base, could be talking out of my ass. That's the feeling I get. While Oklahoma City, you kind of get the feeling that they are more comfortable with being in control. Like when the series in their control, everything is gravy. They're killing it on the offensive side of the glass. They can't miss. SGA is going off. He's going to the free throw line and making his free throws at odds. Oh, everything is great. But when things aren't in a position or a situation in a given game where the boat gets rocked a little bit with OKC, that's when they're immaturity in terms of their lack of experience and just how young they are. One of the youngest teams, if not, I think the youngest team in the NBA, certainly in these playoffs, that's where those warts can rear their ugly head. But Game 7 should be a hell of a 48-minute dogfight. I wish it was on. Saturday night instead of Sunday night. We discussed this earlier in the week with the NBA and their asinine scheduling with the multiple days off in between. I mean, hadn't this series gone? I love this series, but hasn't it dragged on long enough? I mean, what the series started on June the 5th, and it's not going to end until June the 12th. I mean, I don't. It's got to extend 17 to 20 something days. It can't be over in 14 days. Boom, 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 boom. Goodbye, good night, and see you in October. That's Adam Silver for you. And it also kills the momentum. Kills momentum. Every basketball fan worth their salt is talking about, is obsessing, is looking forward to, prophesizing, manifesting, whatever word you want to use, about this Game 7 coming up. And if in a perfect world, it should be tomorrow. And honestly, it should be tomorrow. But if we were making the calls, some of us would like to have it tonight so we can, keep the momentum going. Game 6, Game 7, have something to watch back to back nights. But obviously, it's not the way the NBA works nowadays. Got to have at least one day off in between games. But they're not playing back to backs in come playoff time. What are you crazy? I mean, so we get that. But the thing that if you want to bitch and moan from the NBA perspective about the ratings and everything else, again, not because of the two small markets, not because Tyrese Halliburton and SGA aren't, Luka Doncic and Jason Tatum or Doncic and Steph Curry, but because the scheduling has killed the momentum from game to game of this series. Killed it. You had now the game was it wasn't a great game. It was an entertaining game for the first 3 quarters. Fourth quarter could have shut the game off, but it's been a compelling back and forth, just sensational series from start to finish. And it's lacked that momentum because you got to have the two. It kills it. In this day and age, summer, you go on social media, whether it's people that you know or people within the world of sports, celebrities, whatever case. I mean, people are going on vacation. It's the official first day of summer. People will be going on vacation. Check them out. Bye. See ya. I'm going to Europe. I'm going to the Caribbean. I'm going to Turks and Caicos. Going to Mexico. I'm dipping out. I'm dipping out. I'm going to put myself in an environment on purpose where I'm not going to be either obligated or have the temptation to have a TV stuck in front of my face all hours of the day and night. And we've gone through it. NBA, and if they don't get a great rating they haven't gotten a great rating for this series already, but if they don't get a great rating on Sunday night, they'll have nobody to blame but themselves. I mean, it's just the lack of momentum just kills this series from a fan's perspective. Kills it. You're sitting on your ass for 2 consecutive nights in a row with no NBA. You have the mindset, it's like, oh, well, NBA is just baseball and that's just how it is, time. And then all of a sudden, you wake up like, oh shit, yeah, the finals are back on. It's you can't have that oh wow light bulb moment when you're thinking and you're pondering in your head of when's the next game coming on, the night of when the next game's going to come on. But we've gone through this. Adam Silver has to fix this going forward. Has to. And if he doesn't think that also doesn't play a factor into a bad or an underwhelming NBA Finals TV rating, he's sadly mistaken. Sadly. Again, World Series did what it did, not just because it was Dodgers and Yankees, but because you had games on damn near every single night outside of the travel day when the teams and the media and the coaches and everyone alike is traveling in between New York and Los Angeles. But it's got to change. It's got to change. Going back to the Rafi Devers trade and that situation between he and Boston, obviously their series against the Giants coming up at AT&T this weekend, beginning later on tonight. And I'm fascinated by this story, not just the trade, but how the Red Sox, how they've been ran recently and how the feeling with their fan base in relation to ownership in the front office and everything. There's this article written by, let's give him credit, June Lee, that was published. What day was the 16th? What was that, on Monday? Yeah, on Monday evening, Yahoo Sports. If you can find, I give you the title of the article. It says, Inside the Absolute Shit Show that led to the Boston Red Sox trade of Rafael Devers. He goes on to state that the trade more essentially was a result of long-time locker room turmoil that also relays from how Alex Cora feels towards the front. It's a very interesting article. And I'm going to pick out a few excerpts from the I'll read here for you, and I'll give you my 2 cents on. Obviously, he states how it started all the way back in spring training when they brought Alex Bregman in. Says that Devers felt misled, believed that baseball chief officer Craig Breslow had gone back on his word, said third baseman position, blah, 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 blah. Says, I don't know. This is what he said back in May. I'm not certain what issue he has with me. This is after they asked Devers to go play first base in the aftermath of Casas breaking his leg. Says the frustration simmered, by the front office. Sources say the patience wore thin. Devers didn't want to play a single inning at first base. Has the quote, the conversations with he and John Henry. Says he didn't demand a trade, but he communicated with the team that he'd be okay with one. I want to get to the meat and potatoes here. This is with pertaining to Alex Cora and Craig Breslow, which I found to be very interesting. Says manager Alex Cora and chief baseball operator Craig Breslow have not seen eye to eye on the direction of the team. Cora wants to win now. Breslow, like Chain Bloom before him, was hired to build a sustainable future. The last time Cora found himself misaligned with the head of baseball ops, Bloom was fired. Blah, 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 blah. Even after the Red Sox acquired Crochet and Bregman, he was not fully on board with how the front office wanted to manage the roster and player development. Says this season, Cora has managed like someone who knows his legacy is on the line, leaning into experience over upside, even when it conflicts with the team's long-term plan. He benched top prospects and left-handed sluggers Marcelo Mayer and Roman Anthony against left-handed pitching despite their strong minor league splits, opting for veteran right-handed bats in Ref Snyder and Romy Gonzalez. The choice underscored the ongoing friction between Cora's win now philosophy and the front office's preaching of sustainable growth. Says, gives a few quotes after his games. Meanwhile, Breslow has grown increasingly insulated. Multiple sources within the organization describe a front office losing cohesion. Staffers who helped build the 4 championship teams with Epstein, Sherrington, Dombrowski alike, and have now felt shut out of the entire operation. The collaborative spirit that once defined the Boston Red Sox baseball operations has frayed. This one I found was very damning. This paragraph right here. The discontent intensified in May of last year, 2024, when Breslow brought in sports consulting firm Sportsology to conduct an organizational audit. The stated purpose was to streamline baseball operations. In practice, it triggered a wave of firings and accelerated the marginalization of some of the longest tenured voices within the Red Sox organization, characterizing a cultural shift to align with more with a Wall Street efficiency. says that one of the clearest signals came during an internal team Zoom meeting earlier this season. Towards the end, Carl Moesch, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, Carl Moesch, Moeshsche, the Red Sox scouting supervisor and team employee since 2017, thought the call ended, and it hadn't. And he said in the midst of a quiet moment, quote, "Thanks, Brez, you fucking stiff," according to two team sources. Words landed like a grenade, and Brezzo fired Moesch earlier this season. And obviously, when there's chaos and there's confusion at the front of the house, eventually it's going to bleed into what happens for the public to see, which is the on-field product. The coaching staff has grown frustrated with the state of player development, specifically on how much emphasis is placed on swing mechanics and hitting data, often at the expense of the fundamentals. The imbalance of coaches believe traces back to the Bloom era and has only accelerated under Breslow. They give an example of Christian Campbell, who has made a string of errors throughout the course of the season at second base since he got called up, and highlights that the Red Sox lead all of baseball with 64 errors, one more than the Colorado Rockies and 17 more than the third place LA Angels. Now, pause right quick. Now we see why the Red Sox are where they are. We see why they are never as bad as advertised, and they're never as good as they should be. It honestly explains why the Boston Red Sox, since their 2018 championship, have been essentially a mid-baseball team, outside of a magical playoff run and playoff push that they made as a wild card team back in 20. It explains so much, because you have one manager that's a good manager, who I still think, with the best roster and the best situation put in front of him, is one of the better men at his craft in Alex Cora. But yet he's got a roster served to him that isn't great, that has a lot of young, unproven talent, that, for whichever way you want to slice the cake, has individual flaws in every single specific player's game. They have a philosophy that's being preached that's more of the new school Moneyball-esque approach, where they're more caught up on the advanced stats and the metrics and everything else, and the good old-fashioned solid hardcore fundamentals that actually is the difference between you winning and losing championships. When the pressure cooker reaches the boiling point, that gets overlooked. And as a result, it leads to the Red Sox losing games. So when you go back, you look at highlights of the Boston Red Sox earlier this season, in 24, in 23, in 22, where the Boston Red Sox have essentially at times looked like a peer of the Chicago White Sox, with how poorly inept they are at the basic fundamentals, whether running the bases or obviously in the field, like I said, with the fielding errors problem. Now we see why. This is what happens when you ignore the basic meat and potatoes of what the game of baseball has been built on, and what it takes to truly build a champion. This is what happens when you put. Matter of fact, where's my T-shirt? I was doing my laundry earlier this week, and I was looking through my clothes, and I came across a shirt that I said, well, you know what? Come Friday's show, I'll make sure I'm gonna have it on standby, so I can bring it and unveil it for you and reference it when I talk about the Red Sox. Now, for those of you long timers, know that I created a T-shirt. For whatever the reason, I was going to make more of these during the COVID year and sell them for profit. I never did. I made the prototype, and that's what it is. I made this for you OGs out there listening. You guys remember, this was a quote that I had during 5 years ago during October World Series, Rays and Dodgers, when Kevin Cash pulled Blake Snell from the game when he was cruising. Dodgers bats couldn't touch him. He goes to his bullpen because analytics and Excel spreadsheets said so. Third time through the order, all that bullshit. He brings him in, and obviously the World Series for Kevin and the Rays blew up right in front of their very faces, and in certain extents, they have not been the same team since. And the quote that I had was, computers do not win you championships, people do. And I think I should make a few of these in blue and red and ship them up to Boston, no pun intended, and give some to the Boston Red Sox organization, because people, I mean, it's no, the game of baseball, it's changed, but it can only change with so much without losing its true identity of what it is. The game has evolved in certain aspects, and on the other aspects, the game stayed the same. Computers, Excel spreadsheets, AI ball jive, the over analytical, numerical, statistical outlook, all of that's fine and dandy. They're good tools to use to help improve your philosophy, to help improve your baseball team. It is a piss poor, heavily flawed foundation. We've learned this. Why do you think the Oakland A's, when they were good during the Moneyball years with Billy Bean, over a decade and 2 decades ago, why do you think they never won anything? Why do you think the Tampa Bay Rays, now granted regular season, I still don't know how they do it, the devil's magic from the devil Rays, but whatever magic they use, it fizzles out once the calendar hits October 1 because they don't win in October. They don't win in October. You need the people. You need old school philosophies. You need the fundamentals. You need to be a fundamentally sound baseball team. You have to. I don't care what the analytics say. I don't care what some Excel spreadsheet, some advanced sabermetrical say. I'm not interested. The fact of the matter of it is, the team that catches the ball at the most high of frequencies and the team that runs the bases the best, they win. Fundamentals wins you games, and in turn, it wins you championships. Yes, it's important about the runs created and what your on base percentage and what your OPS and putting together the best lineup where the WAR is the best. That's all fine and dandy. But at the heart of the issue, when you strip the game of baseball down to its foundation, can you catch the ball? Can you field the ball? Can you throw the ball? Can you run the bases properly? That's what it comes down to. Because in a case in point, like we saw with the Yankees, historical arch nemesis in the New York Yankees, this past postseason, or excuse me, last season, last year's World Series, what happened? Did anybody give a crap about runs created plus and the sabermetrical numbers with WAR and all that other foolishness when the Yankees were kicking and throwing the ball and dropping the ball all over the place in that 5th inning collapse against the Dodgers in Game 5 of the World Series? No. The game it's evolved in certain aspects, but at the root of it, it has not changed. The team that catches it's the most fundamentally sound, among other things, but you got to get the basic fundamentals and the foundation of the sport right. If you can do that, the rest will be gravy. You can't cut corners. You can't take shortcuts. The team that also is the most, it's got the most talent, that can hit, drive in runs, get on base, can get outs, get started pitching the ball. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But the end-all, be-all, the number one primary thing you got to have if you have no chance of winning is the fundamentals. If you're not a fundamentally sound team, you won't win. Point blank, period, case closed, end of story. You can't beat yourself. You can't give your opponent extra outs. We talked about this in the World Series last year, and we talked about being a slave to the computers in relationship to the Tampa Bay Rays 5 years ago. And the Boston Red Sox are essentially going through that same inane torture chamber of bull jive. And the chickens aren't even waiting to come home to roost in October. They're coming home to roost during the bulk and thick of the regular season, which is why they go essentially 81-80 or 80-82 damn near every single year, because they do have enough talent that can win them games up the span of regular season, and they have a manager that knows his way around a 162 that has won games in a regular season before. That's a former World Series champion. But when you have the constant friction and the constant tug of war between on-field people in leadership and the people within leadership upstairs, this is what happens. I read that and I said, no wonder. Like, why should I be surprised anymore? No wonder when the Red Sox are at their worst, they look like 100-loss last place team. No, and kicking and throwing and just vomiting all over themselves, all over the baseball field, in the outfield, everything. No wonder. No wonder they lead the universe in fielding errors, and why it feels like they've been either top 5 or top 3, and not just the American League, but in all of baseball in fielding errors for like the last 3-4 years now. No wonder. It's no surprise. Because you have the stooges in the front office that are relying on Wall Street business tendencies and AI and Excel spreadsheets to build a baseball team. And that's not how it works. Again, they're good tools to use. They make piss poor foundations. And the Red Sox essentially are fucking around and finding out. Highlighted by the Devers trade and what I've read from this article thus far. Fielding error came during Roman Anthony's debut. He misplayed a ball in right field. Next day was sent out to run outfield drills in front of the media. Multiple people in the organization noted that under previous regimes, that kind of instruction would have taken place behind closed door. This time it felt like a message from the coaching staff to the front office. Yeah. You got one piece of leadership that thinks shit like that is no big deal, and the other half says you better get your ass out there early at 2:00, 1:00 in the afternoon, get to the yard early and get this stuff nipped in the bud. Because I totally get. This makes perfect. I'm not surprised because that's just how the game of baseball has gone in the last 10 to damn near 15 years. I'm not, if not longer, 20 years. I'm not surprised. Because you got all these people up in the front office and Brezzo, who played baseball for a while, should know better. This guy that played, and I guess this is why what Devers said. I don't know why, he feels like he's picking on him. Because like he knows how the game of baseball is played. He knows that it's not that easy, as we discussed with Devers. He knows it's not that easy to change positions and the play games fielding out of position, especially in the middle of a season. He knows that. He knows that the games are won on the field and what it takes to be a championship, and at least knowing what a championship team looks like. Being a baseball fan, being around baseball, all it's like being a former Major League Baseball player. This shouldn't be rocket science. I can see if this guy was some dope that hadn't played a game of baseball since he was in Little League, that was a numbers guy and was highly educated and said, "Oh, let me dip my hand in professional." I could see if it was that, but Breslow's a former pitcher. He should get this. Who played for the Red Sox? Why is this foreign to him and the people that's within his regime amongst the Red Sox front office, within the Red Sox front office? Why? I can't wrap my mind around this. You would think, being a former player, that he would get certain ways of thinking from a player's and a coach's perspective. That some guys that are in Major League Baseball front offices that didn't play the game for a living at the highest level wouldn't be able to get, because they'd have no frame of reference. He does, and somehow he's fucking it up like some stooge coming out of Yale University. Makes no sense. So it makes perfect sense why things have gone to hell with the Red Sox. Says John Henry has grown more hands-off, has given the day-to-day operations to President Sam Kennedy. They draw the parallels with that being with ownership group led by John Henry, him owning a soccer team overseas, owning the obvious Pittsburgh Penguins and everything. So they've drawn those parallels to that. This is what happens when kind of the lead dog, stretches his hands out a little bit too far. And the time that he would normally have around the team to make sure that this type of day-to-day contentious episodes behavior doesn't happen. He's not there to see. He's not there to delegate. He's not there to hold people accountable, because he's got his too many hands and other things. Again, another thing that doesn't surprise me. It says that Kennedy, Breslow, and Cora did not care to comment. Staffer described the trade of Devers after they swept the Yankees last weekend as, quote, an absolute shit show. And then obviously, I'm not a soccer fan, but his soccer team made headlines in England after spending a record $157.7 million on German player Florian Wirtz. And that came in the same weekend of the Devers trade. So the optics in terms of John Henry, that doesn't look good on his end. So you got it, yeah. The front office wants to basically make the Boston Red Sox out to be the Tampa Bay Rays or the Oakland A's 2.0. You know, what their game, I mean, how long do they realize that this is the Boston Red Sox? Like this is not the Tampa Bay Rays. This is not the Colorado, like this is the Boston Red Sox, and since the turn of the 21st century, this is a team like kind of similar to New England Patriots, where they don't have a lot of time for last place seasons, no playoffs, and being irrelevant post August 1st. You know, they've grown accustomed to winning 4 championships in the first 25, 26 years of the new millennium. They do not want to be, essentially, no disrespect, looked at as the new age version of the Baltimore Orioles. Great ballpark, rich history, championships up the yin yang to brag about from yesteryear, but the current product is nothing but a bunch of slop, mediocrity, and unwatchable foolishness. So I don't blame the cynical and or the frustrated Red Sox fan. Because at some point, I understand all teams have to go through some period of a rebuild. How worse it gets, the great teams, the functional teams, the teams that haven't completely lost the plot know how to rebuild while also put together a respectable, watchable product out the 162, similar or exactly what the Yankees did for that period from 2014 to 2016, those 3 seasons where they weren't good, they were rebuilding, but they still found a way to win 80-something games at bare minimum a season. So, so give them credit for that. But I everything after reading that article, reading it once for the first time by myself, and then reading it, summarizing it again for you guys watching, it all makes perfect sense to me. And if you're a Red Sox fan that's a little bit impatient, I get where you come, because it's like, okay, rebuilding for what exactly? We're in the span of this rebuild, trying to build for the future and trying to put together a new core of youthful talent. But what's the end goal? Is the end goal to basically is to go through a rebuild for us to win again, to win championships again, or the rebuild is for us to just put together a pipeline of talent so we can always be competitive, always teasing, never pleasing come October, like the aforementioned A's and Tampa Bay Rays? So if I could ask the Red Sox, if I could ask John Henry, Breslow, and a bunch of his cronies, if I could ask them one question, that would be it. Is the game plan to rebuild, to put together a champion again, or for with younger, newer, fresher talent, or is the game plan to essentially build a pipeline of talent so you're always competitive every single regular season, but you're missing those key ingredients that you need to execute and win when the rubber meets the road come October, to the likes of the Rays and the aforementioned Oakland A's? And Alex Cora, he understands baseball. He gets the game. He understands how the game is played. He knows the psyche of what is to be a player, a manager, and he's relatively in tune with the Red Sox. It's said in the article that he's managing like his legacy is on the line, because he knows that if either between now and the end of the season things go haywire, he's going to be the fall guy, especially because he has existing friction with the people upstairs. Not with the players, but the people upstairs. So first sign of trouble, Red Sox fans are kicking, bitching, and screaming that they're going to go, 75 and 87 and be a non-factor late in the year, when it was advertised to them and to the baseball masses alike that they could possibly go to the World Series. That's how high their ceiling was going into this year. He's going to be the first one out the door. Not anybody in the front office. He's going to be the first one. You can see it. Red Sox fire Alex Cora. You can see it coming from a mile away if this summer does not go the way it should for the Red Sox. And in the aftermath of trade endeavors, I'm not convinced that it will go the way that they want. I could very easily see Devers going off, the Red Sox getting swept in San Francisco this weekend, and it being essentially the kickstart of a miserable summer. And the Red Sox just spiral out of control, and Alex Cora is going to be out of a job the first day in between the game 162 and whenever the first wild card game is in early October. See it. And it's going to be a huge conversation during the baseball postseason, during the playoffs, and then whenever the World Series ends, it's going to be a huge conversation of who's going to be the next team in line to swipe up and scoop up Alex Cora. You can literally, at least this is how I see it from the outside looking in, you can see this catastrophe brewing 9 miles away. And the Red Sox have nobody to blame but themselves. They did not become one of the more envious franchises in baseball of this young century for nothing. And they didn't do it being a slave to the analytics and basically trying to reinvent the way a championship baseball team is constructed and trying to reinvent the way the game of baseball is played. Remember, they got more rings in this century than the Astros, the Yankees. Who call the roll? The American League team let me go back and think. The Red Sox have won 4. The Giants have won 3. The Marlins have 1. The Angels have 1. The Diamondbacks have 1. The Rangers have 1. The Cardinals have 2. The Dodgers have 2. Am I missing anybody? 05, the White Sox have 1. Yeah, they got the Phillies have 1. Yeah, they're the winningest team in terms of championships. They're the winningest team in baseball since 2000. They are up there with the Dodgers and the Yankees as the Cubs have won in 2016. They're up there with the Dodgers and the Yankees as one of the ideal model franchises in all of Major League Baseball post 2000. They are. And they basically are trying to build a team or go about ways that's beneath the franchise. Essentially, it's beneath the big bad Boston Red Sox to basically try to reinvent the wheel, reinvent how business is done, how to put together a baseball team by this Mickey Mouse, Oakland A, Tampa Bay Rays way of thinking. It's beneath them. They don't need to. They can borrow, they can copycat some aspects of teams that run business that way to help improve how they do things up in Fenway. But again, it should not be their bread and butter. Similar to what we're low-key kind of learning with the Yankees. The slave to the analytics, the slave to Excel spreadsheets, the sabermetrical numbers and the metrics and the analytics. We see it happening with the Yankees. And how's that worked out for them? Another franchise, the goal of the expectation is to win championships, not be good, sell out the building, and win our standard 87, 88 games a season at minimum for us to say, yay, we made the postseason. Red Sox, my feeling after reading that and after what I've obviously have seen from them on the field at the surface the last few years, if they're not careful, man, they could be on a long highway to hell. And I don't think anybody outside of Alex Cora is wise enough and is aware enough to see it coming. Because they low-key are playing a very, very dangerous game. Bad enough that their fan base is already on edge. And things could spiral out of control for that baseball team, not just this season, but in the foreseeable future in a hurry if a lot of things don't break their way. Many of which, if these prospects turn out to be any good. If they end up becoming either complete busts or marginal baseball players at best, Boston Red Sox, man, oh my good Lord. they could be in for a world, and I mean a world of trouble. In terms of my baseball team, what the hell? Might as well talk about them. Get deep into the. I mean, I know we've officially started summer in terms of the season itself, but you get deeper into the summer months, June, July, so on and so forth. You run out of things to talk about, so why not milk the cow, the gift that keeps on giving, and that is my 2025 Baltimore Orioles. I mean, you gotta laugh. I'm laughing, I'm smiling to keep myself from going insane because you gotta laugh to keep yourself from crying and to keep yourself from checking yourself into a mental hospital because only this team can come out, punch the Rays in the face with an 8-run second inning, do nothing, absolutely nothing the rest of the game, 12 unanswered runs, blow out the Rays, and then turn around and lose by 4. Only the Orioles can do that. And this was, ladies and gentlemen, an opportunity they had to get within, I believe, about 5 games of the second wild card spot, the 6th seed in the American League. Had an opportunity to get under 10 games, under 500 for the first time since like April. They would have won that game. They would have been 32-41. 9 games under with an opportunity also to win the series last night against Tampa. Team that's been the hottest team in the American League, that's above them in the standings to challenge the Yankees for first place in the East, who also holds the top wild card spot in the American League, would have had an opportunity to have a huge statement series going into the Bronx this weekend with a boatload of momentum. Where at the worst, if they would have won Wednesday night and lost last night, they would have gotten a split, but it would have came in less humiliating fashion than it ended up becoming by winning last night in the aftermath of choking away an 8-0 lead on Wednesday. An 8-0 lead on Wednesday. 8 runs in the top of the second inning. Top of the second. All kick-started by a Ryan O'Hearn leadoff walk. Gary Sanchez singles. Colton Cowser goes deep. 3-0. After a Kobe Mayo strikeout, Cedric Mullins homers. 4-0. Then a Holiday single. Westbrook reaches on an error. Gunnar Henderson singles. 5-0. They take out Kevin Kelly to bring in Taj Bradley. First batter he faces, Ramon Laureano. 3-run homer. 8. And then the Orioles offense literally shut down and turned off the remainder of the night. They did not get a base runner. Until a Colton Cowser hit by pitch. They went in, nobody touched base. I don't even think they got. Let me double check. I don't even think they got a hit the rest of the evening. Let me see. 5th inning, no hit. 6th inning, no hit in the 6th. No hit in the 7th. Did they get a hit in the 8th? No. They didn't get a hit the rest of the night after that second inning. They got no hit the final 7 innings of the game. 8-0. They got no hit. Offense completely shut down. Now, it's their fault on that aspect that they thought that the game was over, so much so that they just didn't show up offensively the rest of the night, especially when Tampa Bay, like Jaws, happy 50th anniversary, you saw the little shark fin roaming in the water, getting closer and closer and closer to the shore. And the offense just refused to do nothing about it. They saw it. 8-2, 8-3, 8-5, 8-6, 8-8. Offense going to do something? Nope. We're just going to sit here and just cruise. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Uncompetitive at-bats, strikeouts, ground balls, flyouts, trying to play hero ball, trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark, not letting the game come to them as it did in the second. And then all of a sudden, 8-8. And I'm watching this shit show, and I'm like, as soon as the time run came to the plate, I was like, the Rays are going to tie this game up. The Rays are going to tie this game up. Lo and behold, 8-0 lead. That'd be one thing if Tampa Bay got it in one fell swoop. But what did the Rays do? They chipped away, bit by bit by bit. 8-1 becomes 8-3 in the third, becomes 8-4 in the fourth, becomes 8-5 in the fifth, 8-6, and then Brandon Lau, 8-8. Tampa ties it.
You can't make this shit up. You can't make this shit up.
You cannot make it up if you try. Only this team takes a blowout that would have been just a marvelous night. Hey, Orioles up 8-0, belt to ass. Yankees can't do shit. And their game against the Angels, because you guys know there's nothing I love more than a good old-fashioned Yankee hate watch. I'm in a blissful mood on Wednesday. And then once it became 8-3, not even 8-5 or 8-6, when it became 8-3, you got that nervous feeling in your stomach saying, oh, God. Still got to get 20-something, 15-some-odd outs. It's in that moment where you're a fan, you're saying to yourself, damn it, you wish baseball had a clock. You wish it had a clock because you just wanted that motherfucker just to keep on going and going and going and going and going to where the clock becomes their enemy instead of their actual opponent, where they're playing the clock rather than playing. You wish and you prayed baseball had a running clock. But that's one of the beauties of this game. There is no clock. You got to get all 27 outs. And I tweeted it in moment. I said, listen, this offense cannot rest on their laurels. They are going to make the Orioles fight and earn every single last one of these 15, 18 outs remaining in this game. So offensively, you got to basically treat it like it's nothing, or like you're down. Like there's an ever-ending, eternal deficit hole you got to dig yourself out of. That you have to basically approach that you are losing the rest of this game, and you cannot rest on your laurels and count on this 8-0 lead to stick. And you knew watching the game it wasn't going to stick. The reason why that game wasn't going to stick was because Trevor Rogers, who this season, he's pitching to a 3.12 ERA. In his short time back, he hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been egregious for the Orioles this year, much to my surprise. But you include how he pitched for this team last year. You include that he had to start the season on the injured list and put together just gaudy performances, rehab starts in the minor leagues. His team goes out and spots you an 8-0 lead against one of the hottest teams in all of baseball. Spots you an 8-0 lead. I don't give a shit how long he had to sit on the bench. I don't give a shit if he had to sit on the bench for 23 minutes, 33 minutes, 43 minutes, or 2 hours and 53 minutes. You get spotted an 8-0 lead. This isn't Little League, okay? Where kids get antsy. They can't sit still for that. This isn't Little League, okay? This isn't Little League. This isn't 13, 14, 15U travel ball. This isn't the College World Series. This isn't the Little League World Series. This is the cream of the crop, creme de la creme, Major League Baseball, where the grown-ass men play. If you can't find a way to manage your energy, your adrenaline, your body, your arm, what goes on in your arm and upset, you can't manage that sitting on a bench for an extended amount of time while your team is gifting you like medium rare steak, roasted potatoes, roasted grilled asparagus. I mean, your team is literally cooking you a Michelin star award-winning meal, and you are the nincompoop that sit up in a restaurant bitching because it's taking a little longer than you wanted. Well, damn it, you're getting what you want. Shut the hell up, sit on your ass, continue to munch on the bread they give you, sip your wine, and just be patient because it's going to be worth it in the end. And instead, he's getting antsy, and he goes out there and he ruins it. He's got an 8-0 lead and he's nibbling like he's trying to nurse a 1-run game in the bottom of the 7th inning with the heart of the order up. 8-0 lead. He starts nibbling. Starts getting behind in the count, lacking command, walking the ballpark. He's got an 8-0 lead. Throw him softballs down the heart of the plate. And when I mean softballs, I mean pitches that they can make contact. If they hit him out the ballpark, you got 8 runs to work with. And you might play into the psyche where if 1 or 2 players get a home run, okay, fine, it's 8-2, you're still up 6. And going to get, and eventually it's going to play into the minds. Well, damn, he's giving us number of pitches to hit. It gets in the head, they get excited. All of a sudden, you get a bunch of home runs in the elevator shaft. What happens? They drop their shoulder, drop the elbow, they elevate the ball too much, and it's flyouts. The rest, I don't give a damn that it was humid and it was hot. They play in a bandbox, balls carry. They're not going to hit a home run every single at bat. They're going to get nothing but flyouts, trying too hard to lift and elevate the baseball. You're up 8-0. Let it happen. If it gets to 8-4, 8-5, then you get nervous and you want to change your approach, fine. But even then, you still got a 4 or 5 run cushion. Then why go out there and just start and literally play right into their hands with the belief of them thinking that they're going to win this game? They were down 8-3, 8-4, 8-5, 8-7, and you look at their dugout, and it was like, it's almost as if like they knew that they were going to win this game in comfortable fashion. You saw the looks and the attitude within that dugout and just how that team carried themselves with every single run that started to cross the plate and every single base runner that got aboard safely. You knew, and I knew. If you sat back and I watched that game as a fan, sitting back Wednesday night, saying to myself, I'm saying it quietly and I'm saying it not as a form of manifestation, not as a form of I told you so, but just as somebody that's seen enough baseball that has played it, not at an increasingly high level, but nevertheless, and just knowing how this team is, from what I've seen throughout the course of this year, I'm saying they're going to win this game. They're going to blow this shit. We're up 8-5, 8-6 is when I was like, it's over. But we're up 8-3, 8-5, and I'm saying to myself, they're going to blow this. Like, they are going to blow this. And lo and behold, what happened? I mean, now, granted, Yennier Cano has been a complete shell of himself since the 2023 season. He's not the same pitcher he was. The thing with him, hitters have figured him out. He leaves a slider. He leaves a sinker up way too much. It catches way too much of the plate. When he leaves that shit up and leaves it in the heart of the plate, middle. I mean, it's like it's batting practice. It's so easy to hit. What made him so dominant in 2023 was his ability to locate his slider and his sinker to pitch it from a strike to a ball, not ball to a strike. He can't miss bats like he did that year. He's way too much hard and soft contact that's finding outfield grass. In 30 appearances, he's been to a 5.11 ERA. It's just he's been bad. His last 7 outings, he's been to a 6.35 ERA and 5 2/3 innings pitched, giving up 4 runs, 2 walks, and 8 hits. He has not pitched well at all. Had some nice outings against the Anaheim Angels, but he has not, against solid competition, he has not pitched well. He hasn't. He's not been missing bats and has not been striking out as large amount of guys as he was in 2023, and that's a huge problem. So, yeah, does he pin it because he came in after Scott Blewett, 4 hits, 4 runs, and essentially choked the game away? But do I blame it on him solely and purely? No. Because with an 8-0 lead in the second inning, he shouldn't be entering that game, and he's probably never going to admit this. But deep down inside, you ask him in that second, third, fourth thing, you're saying to yourself, Yennier, do you think with an 8-0, 8-1 lead, mentally, do you plan on getting yourself mentally and emotionally prepared to go into this game tonight with an 8-run second? He told you hell no. 8-0. I'm saying shit. I got the night off. I ain't seeing this game. Game's over. Games like this, there's no chance I'm coming in this game. We're up 8-0 in the second inning. There's no way. No way. I'm gonna see the field of this game. Even in a mop-up role, I'm not going to see this game. And if I do see it, I guarantee you it ain't coming any earlier than the 7th or the 8th inning. Maybe I get the 9th to get some work in, but that's it. And what happens? Because Trevor Rogers, whatever his damn name is, essentially had no plan on eating innings, giving his bullpen the night off, taking one from the team, and just getting outs, not nibbling, not pitching the strike, just getting outs. 8-0 lead, hold it. 8-1 lead, hold it. Had no interest. So what happens? He goes 2 in the third, giving up 3 runs on 5 hits, walking the ballpark with 3 walks, and 2 relievers later, Yankees Cano's got to come in the game in the 5th inning of a game in which the Orioles led 8-0 through 2. He implodes. Kittredge comes in and dumps gasoline onto the fire, and that's all she wrote. I mean, it's just par for the course for this disgusting, decrepit season. Offense shut down, and Trevor Rogers getting beat up and then eventually taken out of the game. He didn't even make it through 4 innings. You knew. That's all the momentum that the Rays needed. That's all the momentum. That's all the confidence that they needed. Knocking a guy out of a game that should have went 7, 8 innings bare minimum. That game should have been a complete game shutout, him cruising, pitching the contact, and the Rays should have went down and went away quietly and feebly into the night. But instead, because Tyler Rogers stinks and he's still on this damn team, because Mike Elias has no idea what the hell he's doing, who's a con man, a liar, and a glorified scout that essentially gave away 2 prospects in Connor Norby and Cal Stars that at any point in time in this season, from opening day to today, would have found great use and would have been found valuable to the 10th degree, because it would have made great contributions to this team with the injuries that we've had with Westberg, with Cowser, with Mullins. My God, would have made a tremendously great contribution to this team. They're not on this team. Why? Because Mike Elias essentially gave him away for a batting practice machine. A walking, talking, living, breathing batting practice machine. That's what Mike Elias got back for 2 decent, more than decent, very good prospects that had a nice but short amount of success in Orioles uniforms, as you know, in the front end of 2024 and in Stowers skates in 23 and in 22. Gave him away for a bum that couldn't even be bothered to pitch the contact to get outs when his team spotted him an 8-0 lead. I don't want to hear about him sitting his ass on the bench for a half hour. I don't want to hear about nothing but heat and humidity. Newsflash for Tony Mansolino, okay? Let me read y'all this is the forecast here in the 410 that his team is going to walk themselves into come Monday of next week when this team returns home for a 6-game homestand. Okay, here's the forecast starting Monday, the 23rd of next week. These are the highs. Okay, 103, 104, 102, 98, 91, 92, 93. Those are the highs. 103, 104, 102, 98, 91, 92, 93. I don't want to hear not another damn word about any heat or humidity. You play baseball outside on the East Coast during the summertime. What is this, a foreign concept? That loss had me pissed off. Still, and they did it. Give them credit. They bounced back. They won last night in controlling fashion, 4-1. But still, that should have very easily have been a series win. And God forbid they miss out on the playoffs by a game. We're going to go back to that game on Wednesday night as the reason why. because there is no rhyme or I don't give a shit about how good the Tampa Bay Rays can hit. I'm not interested. The Tampa Bay Rays are not the 98 Yankees. Get off of it, please. Give me a place, especially when the Orioles, since 2023, have beaten the Tampa Bay Rays like a drum. I don't want to hear it. Oh my God, that's one of the more inexcusable, more embarrassing losses I've ever experienced as a fan of this baseball. That loss was worse than 24-2 on Easter Sunday. Worse. And only this team can lose a baseball game in more just damning fashion than getting their asses handed to them at home and losing a game by a grand total of 22 runs. Only the Orioles can reach a new standard of embarrassing futility. Only the Orioles. You cannot make this up if you tried. Only them can find a way to reach themselves and bring themselves and drag themselves down to a new low. Doesn't get any worse than that. Really doesn't. In terms of their opponent this weekend in the Bronx, the New York Yankees, I tell you, they snapped their skid yesterday, but the June swoon under Aaron Boone's umbrella strikes again. I don't understand what this team does, honestly. I hope they keep it up this weekend and put together 3 shit shows against my team, make me feel good for a change. So by no means am I saying this and ranting and going on a diatribe in an effort for the Yankees to change their ways and play like how they played in April and May. But I'm just saying this objectively as a baseball fan and a baseball prognosticator. I don't understand how this team just carries themselves and distributes the poor play as they've been accustomed to showcasing for the last handful of years under Aaron Boone. I mean, the fact that this is a professional major league team that runs the bases like a bunch of 3-year-old t-ball players. I mean, if it's beneath, and this is coming from somebody that detests the New York Yankees. Detest them. I would rather swim with a great white shark with no cage than be a New York Yankee. I despise, loathe, and hate the New York Yankees. But this is coming from somebody that hates them with every fiber and every being in my body. This is coming from me. To see the Yankees invent new ways to beat themselves to such an egregious extent is beneath the uniform. To see them run into outs on damn near a daily basis is beneath the uniform. Beneath the uniform. I mean, even yesterday in a win, how in the hell do you get caught stealing and get picked off trying to steal third base on a 3-2 count with 2 outs in the inning? How is that possible? How? This is the New York Yankees, and they showcase baseball and their lack of fundamentals to that of which of the Chicago White Sox and the likes of the Colorado Rockies. They run the bases. They showcase such a pathetic lack of fundamental baseball that rivals a team that's trying to lose on purpose over 100 times in a given regular season. That's how poor they play sometimes. They have the disciplines of a 3-year-old t-ball team. I can find 12U, 14U Little League teams that can run the bases better than the New York Yankees. And I wish I was exercising in hyperbole when I said that. They are as piss poor a fundamentally unsound baseball team that you can find that's not actively tanking, trying to lose games on purpose. Again, what does Aaron Boone do in Tampa spring training? Did he keep his nose in an iPad for all hours of the day and night watching Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl highlights because he's an Eagle fan? What was he doing? This could be the dagger. Was he watching that touchdown pass from Jalen Hurts to Devonta Smith on a loop? What was he doing in February and March during spring training instead of putting his foot up his players' asses and teaching them how to run the bases properly? Literally, the Yankees lose themselves, got about 20-something games a year strictly at the hands of piss-poor coaching and the lack of fundamentals they showcase on a consistent basis. The Yankees went through this slide not because they couldn't pitch, not because they couldn't get anybody out. They went through this slide because of how poor they were fundamentally running the bases and at the plate. Let me go through a situation on Monday night. It's a 0-0 game. The bases are loaded. Bottom of the 11th inning. Jazz Chisholm has an infield single to load the bases. Tying run on third, winning run at second base. Angels are laboring to try to win this game, to end a losing streak of their own. And Anthony Volpe swings at the first. This is also, by the way, after a pitching change. Ron Washington takes Hunter Strickland out, brings in Brock Burke. Brock Burke, the first pitch out of his hand with the bases loaded and the game hanging in the balance, Volpe swings at, rolls over to third base for an easy putout to end the game. You can't be more piss poor at your craft than that. And then Volpe is running the bases like a damn 3-year-old, getting thrown out trying to steal third base with 2 outs, nursing a lead in the game yesterday. And has a pathetic error on Wednesday night to boot on a routine ground ball hit right in front of him. Can't do anything right. And you can give me all the metrics in the world, great defensive shortstop. He may be a great defensive shortstop innings 1 through 6. Innings 7, 8, 9, Anthony Volpe's defensive awareness, value, whatever word you want to use, it goes in the toilet. It plummets. I literally watched him boot that routine grounder the other night and got deja vu from when he did the same thing against my team the Sunday before the All-Star break. Ryan Mountcastle's up, should be a routine 6-4-3 double play to end the game, and he's playing hot potato with the baseball, and everybody's safe, and the Orioles get a run across. So he's not a clutch defensive shortstop in the later innings with traffic on. He can't hit. He can't run the bases. He does nothing right. And I told you guys when the season started, and I can pull up what it is I exactly predicted the Yankees in terms of their record. But I told you guys, I said a lot has to go right for the Yankees for me to believe they're going to be a better team without Juan Soto for the, in the big picture for 2025. 84-78 missing the playoffs. This is why. And I looked up and down the lineup, and I said, you have to basically count on Paul Goldschmidt, who is hitting. He's hitting well. Paul Goldschmidt this season is hitting, pull up his numbers, hitting 303, 8 home runs, 32 RBIs, and an OPS of 814. But in his last 15 games, he's hitting 196 with 2 homers and 4 RBIs and only 10 hits. So Goldschmidt, who has been hitting collectively for the season, is going into a funk. You're counting on an older, experienced player that's more so closer to the decline of his career than he is the peak and prime of his career. You're counting on him to be Aaron Judge's number 2. You're counting on DJ LeMahieu. Why? I have absolutely no idea. But he eventually is going to come back down to earth. He's had a nice start to the season since he's been back, but you Yankee fans know that shit ain't going to last long. J.C. Escara, you get nothing from your catchers. You get nothing from Austin Wells. You're getting nothing from J.C. Escara. It's just bad. It's in 226 this season with 1 home run and 6 RBIs and 62 plate appearances. You're not getting anything from him. You're not getting anything from Oswald Peraza. He's hitting 157 on the season. He's hitting exactly 0 for 0 And his last 10 plate appearances, his last 7 games, he hasn't gotten a hit. He's hitting 156 with a 270 on-base percentage and 250 slugging in his last 15 games. That punches out to 32 plate appearances. 1 home run and 2 RBIs and 10 strikeouts. You're getting nothing from him. You're getting nothing from Cody Bellinger, who's hit the wall. He's hitting 259 for the season. In his last 7 games, hitting 250 with 1 home run and 2 RBIs. You're counting on a bunch of ifs, hopes, and a whole lot of maybes. I said this about the Yankees going into the season. I said this. So them hitting this little slump offensively isn't surprising for anybody or to anybody, nor should it be. This is an average at best lineup, above average when everybody's clicking. They're not a great offense. They're an eye to very good offense. You can't be a great offense. We just lost Juan Soto. I'm sorry. And Yankee fans and Yankee people also have to take into account that Aaron Judge, for this offense, in terms of their collective offensive numbers, Aaron Judge, who for the bulk of the first half of the season was sitting over 400, he's been carrying a lot of this team's weight. And when he goes into a slump, the rest of the team, surprise, surprise, doesn't hit. His last 7 games hitting 115 with a slugging at 269 and on-base percentage of 207, and he's striking out damn near, 40 if not 50% of his at-bats. He's got 15 strikeouts in his last 7 games and only 3 hits to show for it. And when he's not hitting, the rest of the lineup doesn't hit. And then I got Aaron Boone after the game telling me, boy, he's making hard contact. And Aaron Judge, he's playing well. He's not in a slump. How dare you say Aaron Judge is in a slump? He's making great contact, blah, 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 blah. Yet the numbers are telling me something completely different. And more importantly, Aaron Judge is saying something that of, I'm in a slump. Yet Aaron Boone, you get, under my umbrella, hey, stuck on Planet Delusional, not believing that fat meat is greasy. And then they're running the outs on the bases. Volpe swinging at the first pitch with the bases loaded in an extra inning game. Another thing, Yankees can't win games in extra innings or save their lives either. God forbid they lay a bunt down, nobody out. The tying or the winning run is 180 feet away. Why not bunt him over to third? No, we're the New York Yankees. We don't believe in bunting. Why? Unless it's Paul Goldschmidt or Aaron Judge up at the plate, you bunt. Period. What did I say about the Red Sox? Fundamentally sound baseball goes at the plate too, not just on the bases in the field, at the plate too. What happens? You got a guy up, nobody out, with the Manfred man second base, and it's not Judge, it's not Goldschmidt up. Maybe, depending on who it is, they're in a little bit of a rut with bat in the hand, you drop down a bunt. And if that doesn't necessarily mean, I wish I had a baseball bat in front of me for me to demonstrate. But it doesn't mean when a bat's in your hand, all of a sudden, drop the bat head down and leave us, surprise button. No. Why not just go up there and say, you know what, I'm going up there, boom, 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 bam. I'm expecting the bunt. I'm letting you know I'm going to make an attempt to bunt the guy over to third base. And I don't want to hear none of this analytical garbage about and the sabermetrical new age crap. Oh, bunting is bad. Bunting is the worst. Bunting is evil. Bunting is of the devil because you're gifting a team an out. Bullshit. With the Manfred man on second base, I'm giving myself a boatload of opportunities to get either the game tying if you're down or the game winning run across if the game is still tied. I'm giving myself a boatload of opportunities because then if I bunt the runner over to third base, yes, there's only one out. But by putting the idea in my opponent's head, depending on who's up bat, hey, let me intentionally walk the guy over to first so I have runners on the corners first and second with one out, double play ends the game. But on the flip side, if you plan the game plan that way, you put the idea in your opponent said, hey, do we play our infield in a little bit, halfway, at semi-double play depth? So if the ball is hit to either infielder, we say, hey, do we either go for the run at the plate if they're running on contact? We got to turn this double play quick and efficiently, depending on who's on bait, who's on first base, who's up at the plate. Because if we don't turn us over play-in time, the run scores games over. I mean, there's so many variables you put into the minds of the four infielders and the manager in the opposing dugout. That's why bunting is good. Sacrifice fly wins the game. They bring in the 5-man infield. You poke it into the grass. That wins the game. Wild pitch, pass ball, runner scores. That wins the. So many different variables. But the Yankees, it's like, no, we want to make essentially scoring one run in 11 innings worth of baseball out to be splitting the atom. Like it's trigonometry or astrology or some shit. Astrophysicists. I mean, it's ridiculous. But it's been the MO of this team for the longest since Boone's taken the job, and then they wonder why they don't win anything. So it's just it's the same predictable stuff from the Yankees going through the June swoon. I just hope the June swoon carries this weekend against my Orioles as the Orioles make their first trip up to the Boogie Down in 2025. Their second meeting against the Yankees, first since late April earlier this season at their place. 3-game weekend set against the New York Bronx Bombers. Now, with the lineup the Orioles put out there early this afternoon, and I'll read it for you just for kicks and giggles. No Jackson Holly, no Gunnar Henderson, and Max Fried is on the mound tonight, who has been by far the best Yankee starter, not even been an issue. 9-2 record, pitching to a 1.89 ERA. I mean, and Sugano, who has been good for the Orioles but has struggled as of late. I mean, you want to talk about walking into a Lions den, knowing that your backs are already going to be up against the wall. Orioles trying to get the 9 games under 500. Yankees trying to make it 2 in a row after their skid that went, from the Red Sox series on through the Angels series up to their victory yesterday. I mean, you can pretty much, bet your life savings Fried's going to get. I mean, if I'm expecting a Fried perfect game with that lineup the Orioles threw out there, or early this afternoon, to be quite honest with you. Then Saturday, it's Eflin, who has struggled on the mound, going against Clark Schmidt. Take your chances there. Sunday, oh my God, that's going to be the chaotic game. That is going to be the game where it's going to be nothing but chaos. Orioles, Yankees at 11:30 in the morning on that godforsaken Roku channel. Will Warren going for the Yankees, pitching to a 4.83 ERA, and Dean Kramer going for the Orioles, pitching to a 4.80 ERA. I mean, if there's ever a game you want to make sure you watch from beginning to end that will never be over until that 27th out is recorded, any game this series, Sunday is it. 2 bums on the mound for both sides. Sunday morning, Yankee Stadium Roku channel. Be prepared, because some crazy shit's fitting to jump off at Yankee Stadium. You mark my words, come Sunday morning. And that's just how it just seems like that's just how this series goes. You're going to get one game that's just drunk crazy. That could be a blowout, could be a nail biter, depends on how the game plays out. And 2 out of the 3 are going to be one-run affairs. Your heart's going to be palpitating like it's Game 7 of the World Series. This is just how these two teams, how those battles between those two teams have gone since 2023. So if you're a Yankee fan, if you're an Oriole fan, strap in and be prepared, because you're going to be in for a nice, long, stress-inducing weekend of Orioles and Yankees baseball coming up. So we attacked that. What else do we have to talk about? Yeah, the AL East race is interesting in relation to the Yankees hitting the skids. They only held a 2.5 game lead over the aforementioned Tampa Bay Rays, who are now 41-34. 41-34, the Rays are. The Yankees are 43-31. The Blue Jays are only 3 games back. The Yankees play them shortly, I should say. They're only 3 games back. They're 40-34. The Red Sox, believe it or not, 2 games above 500 with the 5 out of 6 they took from the Yankees the last 2 weekends, are only 5 games back. And if the Orioles are ever in a situation they can put together a sweep, Lord willing, the Orioles will be less than 10 games, less than 9 games back of the Yankees, maybe as short as 8 games back, if they're able to sweep the Yankees coming up this weekend in the Bronx, which I hope that they indeed do. So we have that, and the Mets are going through their first slump of the year. I don't subscribe to oh my God, the sky is falling, the season's over. They've lost 6 games in a row. They aren't looking great right now. They got an even 600 win percentage. They're 45-30. They and the Phillies right now, heading into their 3-game weekend series against each other in Philadelphia, are tied for first place. Listen, they're without Senga. Their pitching's been beat up a little bit. This is the consequence, if you want to call it one. This is the price that you pay when you live on the margins. You can essentially count on rebuilding and retooling and making over these marginal starting pitchers. I mean, the Mets do not have a Garrett. Now, I understand he's injured, but they don't have a Max Fried. I was going to say Garrett Cole. They do not have a Max Fried. They don't have a Tariq Skubal. They don't have a Paul Skeens. They don't have a Garrett Crochet to anchor that rotation. To anchor their rotation, and this essentially is the byproduct of not having a bona fide, head and shoulders, clear cut blue chip ace within your rotation to give the ball every single fit. This is what happens. Now, Mets feel like that it's in the best interest of themselves as a baseball team to put together essentially a Moneyball-esque starting rotation, converting Clay Holmes from reliever to a starter. You know what? You're going to have to live with it, and you're going to have to find a way to win games in the margins until the rotation gets themselves together to back to where it was in April and May. But you're going through a rough patch right now. You got, you blew a lead on Monday night, which was completely, Tuesday night, which was completely and utterly inexcusable on the part of the Mets. That's a game that you had to win, should have won on Monday, blowing that lead, ended up losing that game by the final score of 5-4 in 10 innings. But listen, you brush yourself off. You lost 6 in a row. Okay, fine. Go to Philly and beat Philadelphia. Now, and we did talk about early on in the season about this gauntlet with Atlanta, Philly, and Atlanta consecutively. With Atlanta home and home, with the Phillies sandwiched in between. We did talk about that early in the season when the Mets were beaten up on the garbage. We did talk about that. So now we got to see what the Mets are made of. Lost 6 in a row. Philadelphia's had a little bit of turmoil this week with the Castellanos benching, but they're still playing relatively better. Tied for first place, going to their building. They want revenge for last year's NLDS. You got to come in with that fearless attitude and that level of intensity, which you see from the Mets at Citi Field, but for whatever the reason does not translate when they go on the road. The Mets, matter of fact, let's check it. The New York Mets this season currently are 27-10 at home and are 2 games under 500 to an 18-20 record away from Citi Field. That level of fearlessness, intensity, championship level of execution, attention to detail, for whatever the reason, that does not translate on the road. And they are going to have to find it and fast, because you're not going to be a great championship caliber baseball team playing sub 500 baseball away from the friendly confines of your own building. That's just how the cookie crumbles. It's just all there is to it. And, Francisco Lindor's gotten into a little bit of a slump at the plate. They can't hit as well on the road as they do at home. Something's got to give, man. Something's got to give. They were solid on Tuesday night, and then they got shut out 5-0 and lost 7-1 last. I mean, they got outscored the last 2 games on Thursday and Wednesday, combined 12-1 against a team that's about a dozen games under 500, and not. Oh, let me double check that. No, only 5 games under 500, about a dozen games out of first place in the East. That's not good. That's not good. The Braves season was on life support, and you just gifted them new life. Only 5 games under now. Now, the division, I think, is out of the question, but they certainly have put themselves in a situation where the rest of this month and heading into July, they're still going to be playing meaningful baseball. And if you're the New York Mets, that just cannot happen on your watch. You're a better team than the Braves, and they did not play like it. They hit better than you guys did. They got better starting pitching than you guys did, and their bullpen was better than y'all's. It's unacceptable, man. From Soto with his base running gaff on Tuesday night, that can't happen, man. I understand how great of a hitter, but again, this is why if you want to sit up here and say Juan Soto's an overrated baseball player, moments like that getting doubled up, it's first base, running the bases in that situation, you got full merit to make that argument. all three phases. You can't just be a great hitter and then say, to hell with being a good defender and right, good fielder and right, and to hell with running the bases properly. Because mistakes like that will be the difference between the Mets going home and moving on in October if they're not careful. First slump of the season won't be the last. They'll bounce back eventually this weekend in Philly, next week when they come back home to play Atlanta, or when they play Pittsburgh. Eventually, they're going to snap themselves out of it. And the Mets that were clicking on all cylinders heading into that Tampa Bay series, they'll find themselves again. They're beaten up, they're battered, they're bruised, but they'll bounce back. They're mental, collectively, they are a mentally tough baseball team. They're just going through a rough patch right now. Going through a rough patch. And, front office, if they got holes, they got holes defensively at third, they got holes defensively in center. They don't have a consistent bona fide starting center fielder, which is a major problem. And Alvarez, who's not hitting, has not been a great defensive catcher for him this season. They got holes there too. And if you're David Stearns and a part of the Mets front office, you can't wait, because if, God forbid, things do get worse before they get better in the span of the next week and a half worth of games, you can't rest on your laurels and essentially wait for the deadline to come to you. You got to get ultra aggressive and get better before the deadline comes. And if shit gets out of control to close out June heading into July, Mets can't afford to wait till the final few days of the third month, or excuse me, the fourth month of the year for them to turn their season around. If things get dire quickly, I don't anticipate it. But if you're David Stearns, if you're a member of the Mets coaching staff, you can't think that way. You got to think. You got to press the panic button internally so the panic button doesn't get pressed externally by the fan base and the masses alike. But they're going to be okay. I think, take 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. Woosah, they'll be all right, headed back home and have an opportunity to get their restitution against Atlanta coming up next week. But you got to be able to take care of business sooner rather than later. And if all else fails, we did talk about how poor the Mets have been heading with runners in scoring position this season. I told you guys, I read off the numbers, I think, on Monday. That's not sustainable through a span of a 162. Eventually, you're going to go through a season, as the Mets are going through right now, where they're going to have to find a way to win some games by the final score of 7-5, 8-6, and 10. Not ideal, but again, that's how the 162 works sometimes. You have to go through a stretch. You're going to have to win games ugly by simply going to the ballpark with the approach of, we have to basically outscore our opponents to win, and hope that by the time the 27th out is recorded, we got 1 more, 2 more, 3 more runs in the opposition. You can't pitch your way and play your way to 2-1, 1-0 victories through a whole 162 and expect to be there at the end of the regular season come playoff time. But we'll see. We shall see. New York Mets going to be all right. I promise you. Last order of business before we get on out of here. Jaire Alexander, in case you didn't see it, is now a Baltimore Raven. This is a good signing on the part of the Baltimore Ravens. Low risk, high reward. Bolsters secondary adds some much appreciated and valued depth and elite depth at that. Jaire Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks at his peak in the National Football League for an extended period of time. Obviously anchored that Green Bay Packers secondary for a good amount of years. They go out there to get him, signed, sealed, and delivered on Wednesday. So that's the Ravens secondary. And give Eric DeCosta credit. I mean, this is a guy that always hits with his draft picks. He gave Derrick Henry an extension earlier this offseason, took care of business. He got Rashad Bateman extended, wasn't anything too expensive to the team's salary cap, but got him extended nevertheless. He's going to have to pay Zay Flowers eventually, so we'll see what he's going to have to do there. But, brought back, wasn't emotional, wasn't overly reactionary. Didn't cut Mark Andrews, which I like to see. Brought back Ronnie Stanley early on in the offseason. Got him back for 20. Obviously cut the atrocious dead weight that was 2 bums that have absolutely, and I mean zero business setting foot in the NFL field again for the foreseeable future. And Brandon Stevens and Marcus Williams, who were painfully inept and were completely destroyed that defense in the first 6 to 8 weeks of the year. So they let those 2 guys walk. They brought, obviously, Marlon Humphrey's still there. They brought in Chidobe Awuzie, formerly of my Bengals, and last season of the Tennessee Titans, and then they also bring in Jaire Alexander to help them as well in secondary. I mean, the Ravens, they're straight. They couldn't have better an offseason if they tried. It all comes down to, and we've said this ad infinitum with the Ravens. The only thing it comes down to is execution from Lamar Jackson come playoff time against the top tier opponents, not the garbage and the Texans and the Titans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nobody cares. Against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills of the world, can Lamar Jackson hold his own? And John Harbaugh just not being an idiot out to lunch and exercising and self-sabotage. That's literally what's going to, that and the injury bug. You know, if you're a Raven fan, hit your knees and hope and pray that you don't get bit with the injury bug like you've had a few times in the last 4 or 5 seasons, give or take. But that's what's going to come down to. That is essentially is what's standing in the way for the Ravens and them hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy in San Francisco this upcoming February. If Harbaugh brings his brain, Lamar Jackson doesn't choke, and they steer clear of the injury bug, Ravens are arguably going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, why shouldn't the Ravens win the Super Bowl this year? I mean, I hate to speak promise into a team that I don't like, but they should win the Super Bowl this year. They should. Regular season wise, they got the quarterback to do it. They certainly have the great prolific run game to do it. They have a solid offensive line. The defense made great strides in the back end of last year and is only going to get better, like I said, by cutting the 2 dead weights and bringing in Awuzie and Alexander into their secondary. Not to mention Kyle Hamilton's been great. He's only going to get better the more and more NFL experience he gains. And Marlon Humphrey is one of the best corners in all of football. But again, it's going to come down to injuries and Harbaugh and Lamar not choking come playoff time. If all 3 of those things go according to the Ravens' plan, they should win the Super Bowl. At least at the bare bones minimum, get to the Super Bowl. But if they don't, you're going to look on everybody stays healthy. But if they don't and they stay healthy, you're going to point to or ask the questions, did Lamar choke again? And what decision did John Harbaugh make that sabotaged and killed his team? And if Lamar Jackson doesn't choke in the postseason and they stay healthy, but they fail to get to win a Super Bowl, we're going to, again, have the conversation about John Harbaugh. And if you want to quibble, if you want to nitpick, the one brain-dead, asinine, head-scratching move that EDC made this offseason was giving John Harbaugh a contract extension back in March, which made absolutely 0 sense. This is a coach that, as far as I'm concerned, should be coaching for his job until he wins the Ravens Super Bowl. This season, he should be coaching. If I was his boss, EDC, Bishotti, the owner, or otherwise, if I was his boss, John, you're coaching for your employment here with the Ravens. You don't get us at least to a Super Bowl, your ass is out. I don't give a shit if you lose the AFC Championship game 41-38. You're gone. You're gone. That's it. Sometimes you reach your expiration date. He doesn't take the Ravens to the Super Bowl this year. John Harbaugh should be thrown out on his ass. Because eventually enough is enough. EDC can't build a better roster than what he's given the Ravens. Literally. Like the roster can't, on paper, get much better than this. Eventually, with the elite talent, the elite 53 men you got in that locker room, eventually, you got to deliver and beat the Chiefs, number 1, and number 2, win a damn Super Bowl. No more. I don't want to hear nothing about, unless Lamar chokes again or the injury bug bites you in the ass. I want to hear no excuses. I don't hear nothing about game planning with Todd Monken. I don't want to hear jack shit about Zach or the DC. I don't want to hear anything about Mark Andrews dropping a pass. Nothing. They don't want a Super Bowl, and it's not because either Lamar chokes or injury. Harbaugh, time's up, buddy. You got to go. This is a guy that he and Tomlin have choked more times in the postseason than you can shake a stick at in the last decade plus. And they went out there and gave him a contract extension. When again, in my humble opinion, he and Lamar turnovers were the two primary culprits as to why the Ravens lost that game to Buffalo. Andrews' drop was just the icing on the cake. Harbaugh going for two, and he had no business going for two, and Lamar obviously with the turnovers. But we've had this conversation ad infinitum. Eventually, Harbaugh's got to pick up his. In the words of Bill Burr, when are you going to pick up your end of the couch? EDC's got to go out there, essentially soak up every last ounce of cap space available. He brings in Awuzie. He brings in Jaire Alexander. He extends Bateman. He brings in Derrick Henry and then extends him. He gets Ronnie Stanley taken care of. And then before all of that, they got Lamar Jackson signed, sealed, and delivered about 2-3 years ago. I mean, eventually, John Harbaugh, in the words of one of my favorite comedians, Bill Burr, when are you going to pick up your other end of the couch? When is John Harbaugh going to pick up his other end of the couch and start carrying his own weight? Because word to the wise, the better the Ravens roster gets, the more and more clear it gets to the rest of us that don't have our head shoved up Harbaugh's ass that he is the big lone primary problem as to why the Ravens haven't won a Super Bowl yet with Lamar Jackson. The better the roster gets, the better Lamar Jackson plays, and the more years go by without him, at least the more and more apparent it is to all of us that John Harbaugh is the problem with this team. You can loathe it, like it, lump it, dismiss it, whatever. The facts are the facts. Outside of Lamar and his own playoff demons that he still has to extinguish, ain't no damn way in hell the Ravens shouldn't have been to at least a Super Bowl by now. Ain't no way. And they've had the one seed twice in the last 5-6 years. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. No. Ain't no way. Eventually, the coach has got to be held responsible. Eventually, the coach has got to be held responsible. It's enough of this. Now, the one caveat I do have about, or the one bugaboo I have about the Alexander signing, is that the guy never plays. I mean, he's got an injury history dating back to 2017. A knee strain, 2 of them that season. He broke his hand in October of 2017. He pulled his groin in September of 2018, missed 2 games. Pulled it again December that year, missed another game. Tore a ligament in broke his thumb in a championship game against San Francisco in the 2019 season. Got a concussion against San Francisco November of 2020, missed the game. Missed 13 games with a shoulder AC joint sprain in October of 2021. Missed a game with a groin pull in 2022. Missed 6 games with an unspecified shoulder injury in 2023. Missed 2 games in September of 2024 with the groin. I mean, the guy never plays. The guy. I mean, let me pull up his football reference basis, see how many games he's. I mean, he never, ever, 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 ever plays. Let's take a look. Games started. 2018, 11 games started. 2019, 16 games started. 2020, 15 games. 2021, 4 games. 2022, 16 games. And a combined 2024 and 2023, he played and started in 7 games each season combined for 14 in the last 2 years. I mean, he never plays. Never play. Now, if he ends up and if he's an injury problem in Baltimore as he was in Green Bay, you know what? You cut him. It doesn't really hurt you. But best ability is availability. He better hold up his end of the couch too and start showing up and keeping his ass out there on the field. Because playing 14 games combined the last 2 years is unacceptable. Unacceptable for a playoff contending team in the Green Bay Packers last 2 years. And that shit is unacceptable. So he needs to get himself in gear too and make sure his ass is out there on the field for Marlon and Kyle Hamilton and the fellas coming up later on this season. Well, that is it. A new episode of the I'ma Tell Like I Tell You podcast was in the books. If you like what you heard, New to the show, please don't hesitate to subscribe right up here. Follow your boy on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, the works at the J Shield. Follow the show on Instagram at Amatel_podcast and the show on Twitter at Amatel_it_TIS. Until Monday, enjoy Game 7, enjoy the baseball. We are